For my meaningful song, I decided to focus on the song Patriot Act by Heems. Not only does this song have personal meaning since it's about something I've faced as an Indian person in this country, but it has a broader political context that's worth digging into. Heems is a stage name for rapper Himanshu Suri, a Punjabi transplant to Queens, New York. He was a part of a half-serious, half-satire rap group called Das Racist until 2012, after which he split off into a solo career. He also spent time on the business side of the industry, owning and operating Greenhead Music until 2015 when he shut the label down. In 2014, he formed a new rap group called Sweatshop Boys with Riz MC, also known as actor Riz Ahmed, and producer Redden Ho. It was during this time that Heems put out his first solo album after a number of successful solo mixtapes. He put out his solo album on the Greenhead imprint in 2015 and called it Eat, Pray, Thug. While it had mixed reviews, Spin Mag called it introspective and said it probed the conflicted feelings around his own identity. If we take a closer look at the lyrics, we can notice a lot of mentions of Indian American culture as well as the effect that 9/11 had on the community. Got powder in the kitchen refers to the common spice tin that Indian people have filled with various curry powders, but it can also refer to the perception that brown people can get that they keep weapons and terrorist materials in mundane places. He mentions Britain and America as superpowers that have been specifically involved in issues in the Middle East and South Asia, but not necessarily in a good way. He also mentions pigeons, a historical slang word for police informants, referring to the 2014 expose that revealed that nearly all high-profile domestic terrorism since 9/11 involved either government agents or informants directly. Perhaps the most interesting lyrics from this section of the song are about the real effects of the Patriot Act. He says that Pentagon, the vision is PRISM, which works on multiple levels. Not only does it work on the metaphorical level of saying that the Pentagon's vision is distorted, but PRISM is the acronym for the Planning Tool for Resource Integration, Synchronization, and Management Program, which is the NSA program that allowed NSA agents to collect large amounts of data about citizens over the internet. The last part of this verse discusses how they finally got someone to listen, referring to the fact that Indian people as a U.S. population were largely ignored until 9/11 and the fear of domestic terror was heightened. However, this someone to listen wasn't who they needed, referring to the agents who would arrest people under the Patriot Act, oftentimes mistakenly. Now would be a good time to make note of what the Patriot Act actually is. Officially titled Uniting and Strengthening America by Providing Appropriate Tools Required to Intercept and Obstruct Terrorism, or USA Patriot, it was passed in 2001 to detect and deter terrorism. The Patriot Act was updated in 2015, but many portions of it remain controversial, especially after the release of the CIA torture report in 2014 that revealed that the enhanced interrogation techniques used at sites like Guantanamo Bay with detainees who were suspected terrorists were largely ineffective and were cruel and unusual punishment. The Patriot Act allows for wiretaps, delayed notification of search warrants to prevent the suspect from knowing they're being watched, tougher punishment for terrorism-related crimes, ending the statute of limitations for certain terror-related crimes, and other provisions. The back half of the song gets more into Heem's personal experience in the aftermath of 9/11. He went to Stuyvesant High School in Manhattan, from where he saw the towers fall. He mentions that he has lasting trauma from the event, saying that he should have seen one of the counselors that the Board of Education had hired. Then he starts on the section where it discusses how life changed for South Asian people in America, such as the smaller issue of people calling anyone who looks like they are South Asian or Middle Eastern Osama. This next verse focuses more on the experiences of South Asian and Middle Eastern people after 9/11, discussing how they bought American flags and tried to make themselves look as presentable as possible. He also mentions that they were yelling, "I'm just like you," while also remaining as quiet and calm as possible, showing their desperation to prove their Americanness, while also showing that they are calm and collected and definitely not terrorists. He mentions the compromises they made and continued to make in order to fit into American society without being labeled a troublemaker. This part of the verse discusses the very real threats to South Asian and Middle Eastern people in the aftermath of 9/11, now that the fear of domestic terror is so great. He mentions the distrust of authority figures such as TSA and police because they became tools of oppression. He also mentions how another cab driver was beaten to death, a passing remark about the danger of being attacked on the street by people who label all South Asian and Middle Eastern people as terrorists. He also mentions deportation and how deportations have continued for a long, long time after 9/11, thanks to the Patriot Act. Obviously, Heems had a specific message to say with this song and with this album as a whole. He told Spin Mag, "When I came out of Wesleyan, I was in this mode where I was constantly thinking about post-colonial theory and race. I thought about it on a larger scale. Now I think of how it affects my community. I think of Indians, Arabs, Latinos, the space between black and white. The discourse about race was always black and white, but now I think of it in terms of how it affects my community and those around me." He said that part of the reason why he made this song and this album was to give a voice to issues that often affect people in his community that aren't talked about in mainstream discourse. And here's my works cited, and thank you for listening.